I still have the employee badge. I keep it locked inside an old toolbox in my garage. Every few months, I convince myself I'm finally going to throw it away. Then I remember what happened the last time I tried. The next morning, it was hanging from the rearview mirror of my truck. I live alone. Nobody has a key to the house. I haven't worked there in almost 4 years. So if you're looking for overnight work because the pay is better and somebody offers you a position at a fulfillment warehouse that isn't on any public map, listen carefully. If they tell you the night shift is different, believe them. And if your supervisor hands you a folded sheet of paper before your first shift, don't laugh. Read every word, because those rules aren't there to protect the company. They're there to protect whatever still works after midnight. I never wanted warehouse work. I was an HVAC apprentice until the company I worked for went under during a slow winter. For almost 3 months, I bounced between temporary jobs. Construction, moving companies, security, anything that paid enough to keep rent current. Eventually, the savings disappeared. Then my truck started making a grinding noise every time I shifted into second gear. The timing couldn't have been worse. One Tuesday afternoon, I got a call from a staffing agency. Night shift, 12-hour rotations, immediate start. The pay was almost double anything I'd been offered. I asked why. The recruiter hesitated before answering. High turnover. That didn't surprise me. Night work wasn't for everyone. I accepted before she finished explaining the benefits. The warehouse sat nearly 40 minutes outside the city. No signs pointed toward it. Even my GPS lost the route during the last few miles. The building itself looked enormous. Windowless, gray concrete stretching farther than I could see beneath rows of white security lights. Hundreds of loading bays lined one side of the structure. Most sat empty. Only a handful of trailers were backed into the docks. Despite its size, the parking lot looked strangely empty. Maybe 30 cars, for a building that should have employed hundreds. Inside, everything smelled like cardboard, machine oil, and industrial cleaner. Forklifts hummed somewhere beyond towering shelves. Conveyor belts rattled overhead. Yellow robots carried pallets across polished concrete floors without anyone driving them. The place looked modern, efficient, normal, at least during orientation. There were only 5 of us in the training room. That struck me as odd. A warehouse this size usually hired in groups. Our supervisor introduced himself as Ellis. Mid-50s, gray beard, calm voice. The kind of man who looked like he'd spent decades solving problems without ever raising it. He explained safety procedures, emergency exits, equipment zones, standard workplace policies, everything you'd expect. Then he stopped, reached into a drawer, and handed each of us a folded piece of paper. Nobody unfolded theirs immediately. I did. Across the top someone had typed, "Night operations, mandatory rules." Only 5 rules. Rule 1. If you hear your own name called from aisle 9, do not answer. Report the incident after sunrise. Rule 2. Packages with no barcode are never to be scanned. Leave them where they are. Rule 3. If every conveyor belt stops at the same time, close your eyes until they restart. Rule 4. Never enter loading dock 4 after 2:30 a.m., even if someone inside asks for help. Rule 5. If the warehouse lights turn blue, clock out immediately. Do not wait for permission. I looked up. A couple of the others were smiling. One guy actually laughed. Cute. Ellis didn't smile. He simply waited until everyone had finished reading. Then he quietly asked, "Any questions?" The laughing guy raised his hand. "This some kind of hazing thing?" Ellis stared at him for several seconds, then answered, "I've worked here 14 years. I've never seen anyone break all 5 rules." The room became very quiet. Orientation ended 5 minutes later. Nobody mentioned the paper again. My assignment was simple: order verification. I walked designated aisles, checked inventory locations, confirmed misplaced pallets, and flagged damaged freight before the morning shift arrived. Mostly solitary work, perfect for someone who didn't mind being alone. For the first 3 hours, nothing unusual happened. The warehouse almost felt peaceful. Robots glided silently beneath shelves. Conveyor belts carried sealed cartons through automated scanners. The constant mechanical noise blended into white noise. I actually started thinking the rule sheet had been some bizarre attempt at employee bonding. Then I reached aisle 9. The aisle itself looked no different from the others. 30-foot shelving, stacked cartons, metal safety barriers. My handheld scanner beeped as I verified pallet locations. Normal, routine. Then someone quietly said, "Daniel," not over the radio, not through a speaker, right behind me. My full name, soft enough that it sounded almost polite. I turned instinctively. Nobody. The aisle stretched empty in both directions. I checked behind the shelving. Nothing. Probably another employee. Except, the scanner showed I was the only worker assigned anywhere near this section. I remembered Rule 1. Don't answer. Feeling slightly embarrassed for letting a printed joke get into my head, I went back to work. 30 seconds later, the same voice spoke again. Closer this time. "Daniel, you dropped something." I looked at the floor. There was nothing there. A cold feeling settled into my stomach. The voice sounded familiar. Not because I recognized the person, because it sounded exactly like my older brother. My brother had died 2 years earlier. I stood completely still. The warehouse suddenly seemed much quieter. Even the conveyor belts sounded distant. Then my radio crackled. "Ellis, status check." I grabbed it immediately. "Everything's fine." "You answer anyone?" "No." A pause. "Good. Leave aisle 9." I frowned. "What?" Another pause. Then he answered in a voice much lower than before. "Because whatever called you, it knows your name now." I left aisle 9 faster than I wanted to admit. Not because I believe the rules. Not yet. I left because Ellis sounded genuinely afraid. People can fake seriousness. They can't fake that kind of fear. The moment I crossed into aisle 10, the air felt different. Warmer. The constant pressure I'd felt between my shoulder blades disappeared. I looked back once. Aisle 9 was empty. Just rows of shelves disappearing into shadow. Nothing moved. Nothing looked out of place. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had stepped behind the shelving the instant I looked away. The next hour passed quietly. I verified inventory, scanned pallet labels, logged a few damaged cartons. Every so often another employee pushed a pallet jack past the end of an aisle. Nobody talked much. Night crews rarely do. Around 1 in the morning, I met Miguel. He'd apparently been working there for almost 6 years. Stocky guy, 40s, always chewing peppermint gum. He noticed the folded rule sheet sticking out of my vest pocket. "First night, that obvious? You still carry the paper." He smiled. "You'll stop after a week." "Because the rules are fake?" His smile disappeared. "No, because you'll memorize them." That answer bothered me more than it should have. We kept walking together for a while. Eventually, I asked the question that had been bothering me. "Has anyone actually broken one?" Miguel kept looking straight ahead. "I've seen 3. What happened?" The first answered someone calling his name. "He quit." Miguel didn't answer immediately. "He still clocks in." "What?" I said. "He still clocks in." I laughed. "You mean he never left?" Miguel stopped walking. "No. I mean, nobody's seen him for almost a year. But his employee badge scans through the entrance every single night." A forklift rolled between us before I could respond. When it passed, Miguel had already continued walking, like he regretted saying anything. At exactly 1:47 a.m., my handheld scanner froze. The screen flickered. Instead of inventory information, a shipping label appeared. There was no package in front of me, just the digital label. Destination: unknown. Carrier: none. Recipient: Daniel Harper. My own name: weight: 198 pounds. I stared at it for several seconds. Then the screen returned to normal. No error. No reboot. Nothing. I tried checking system logs. No record of the screen changing. It was as though I'd imagined it. I didn't tell anyone. I probably should have. By 2 o'clock, the warehouse had become noticeably quieter. Not less busy. Quieter. The conveyor belts still moved. Robots still crossed the floor. Forklifts still worked. But all the normal little sounds. People coughing. Boots scraping concrete. Boxes sliding. Someone laughing across the building. They were gone. It felt like hundreds of people had collectively decided to stop making noise. Even my own footsteps sounded muted. I checked the time. 2:18. Without realizing it, I'd wandered close to the loading docks. Rows of enormous overhead doors stretched across the building. Most were open. Trucks backed into them while workers unloaded freight. Dock 1, busy. Dock 2, busy. Dock 3, busy. Dock 4, closed. Its massive steel door was shut while every other dock remained active. A yellow chain blocked the entrance. Someone had hung an old metal sign from it. Out of service. The paint looked decades old. I remembered Rule 4. Never enter loading dock 4 after 2:30. I looked at my watch. 2:22. Still 8 minutes away. Curiosity started whispering in the back of my mind. If it was out of service, why make a rule about the time? Why not just lock it permanently? I stepped closer. The air became noticeably colder. Not freezing. Just wrong. Like walking into the refrigerated section of a grocery store. The concrete beneath my boots looked darker here. Older. Less maintained. Then I noticed something strange. The dust. Every loading dock had forklift tire marks. Boot prints. Dragging patterns from pallets. Dock 4 had none. The floor in front of it looked untouched. As though nobody had walked there in years. A voice came over my radio. Daniel. Ellis. You near Dock 4? I hesitated. Yeah. Walk away. I wasn't going in. Walk away anyway. Something in his tone convinced me. I turned, then heard 3 slow knocks from the other side of the steel door. Knock. 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 Not loud. Not desperate. Just patient. I froze. Another 3 knocks. Then a man's voice, muffled by the thick steel. Hello. Every hair on my arms stood up. The voice sounded weak. Exhausted. Can somebody open this? I looked around. Nobody else seemed to hear it. Workers continued moving pallets less than 50 feet away. The voice came again. I've been stuck in here. Please. My badge stopped working. I took 1 step toward the door. My radio exploded with static. Ellis shouted louder than I'd heard all night. Don't. I stopped instantly. The voice behind the door changed. Not gradually. Instantly. The exhausted man disappeared. In his place, my mother's voice. Honey, I know you're out there. My mother lives in Arizona. I hadn't spoken to her in 3 days. I couldn't breathe. Daniel, she sounded frightened now. Please open the door. I don't know where I am. Tears unexpectedly filled my eyes. Every instinct I had screamed at me to rip the chain down, to open the door, to help her. Then, I remembered something. My mother never calls me Daniel. Never. Since I was 5 years old. She's always called me Danny. Always. No exceptions. The voice continued. Daniel, please. I backed away. The pleading immediately stopped. Complete silence. As soon as I reached the main warehouse floor, the normal sounds returned. Forklifts, machines, people talking, like someone had turned reality back on. Ellis met me halfway down the aisle. He didn't ask what I'd heard. He already knew. Instead, he looked directly into my eyes and quietly asked, It called someone you love, didn't it? I couldn't answer. He sighed. It never gets that right on the first night. Then he glanced toward Dock 4. His face slowly lost what little color it had left. I followed his gaze. The yellow chain was still hanging across the entrance. The steel door was still shut, but someone had written 4 fresh words across the dust-covered concrete. In footprints. Bare human footprints. The message read, Next time, I'll remember. I didn't sleep when my shift ended. I drove home with the radio off, every traffic light feeling too bright after 12 hours under warehouse LEDs. The words kept replaying in my head. Next time, I'll remember. Not I'll get you. Not I'll be waiting. It sounded like something that had made a mistake and intended to correct it. I told myself I wasn't going back. The paycheck wasn't worth it. No job was. By noon, my phone rang. Payroll. The woman apologized for bothering me on my day off. There was a processing error. What kind? We accidentally doubled your overnight differential. I checked my banking app. She wasn't kidding. Almost 2 weeks' pay had been deposited after a single shift. There has to be a mistake. If you don't return tonight, she said politely, the system will automatically reverse the payment. Rent was due in 5 days. My truck still needed repairs. I hated myself for even considering it. At 8 that evening, I drove back. The parking lot looked exactly the same. 30 or 40 cars. Same security lights. Same empty feeling. Except, one vehicle caught my attention. A dusty blue pickup. I recognized it immediately. Miguel had driven it the night before. The windshield was now coated in frost. Someone had written a message across it with one finger. Don't stay late. I looked around. No one else seemed to notice. When I walked inside, the writing was gone from my mind almost as quickly as I'd seen it. Only later would I realize something impossible. The outside temperature hadn't been cold enough for frost. Miguel found me during equipment check. You came back. I needed the money. He nodded like he'd expected that answer. They all do. What does that mean? Instead of answering, he reached into his vest and handed me a small flashlight. This isn't company issued. I know. Keep it. What for? If the overhead lights ever flicker 3 times, use only this. I frowned. That's not on the rule sheet. No, it should be. Before I could ask another question, he walked away. The shift started quietly. Too quietly. People seemed different. The same faces were there. Same uniforms. Same routines. Yet everyone moved with unusual precision. Nobody stopped to stretch. Nobody checked their phones. Nobody complained. Even conversations sounded rehearsed. At first, I blamed my imagination. Then I noticed one woman stocking shelves. She repeated the exact same movement 7 times. Lift box. Turn left. Sit down. Pause. Repeat. Exactly the same. No variation. Like someone replaying a recording. I stood watching for almost a minute. She never acknowledged me. Never looked up. Then, without warning, she resumed acting normally, laughing with another employee as if nothing had happened. Around midnight, my scanner assigned me to a storage section I'd never visited. The aisles were narrower here, older. The shelving wasn't painted the same bright yellow as the rest of the building. This section still had faded gray steel. Many of the boxes were covered in dust. That didn't make sense. Inventory moved constantly. Nothing should have had time to collect dust. I scanned the nearest pallet. The screen displayed. Location not found. I scanned it again. Same message. The pallet physically existed. I was touching it. Yet according to the warehouse system, it wasn't there. A second pallet. Same result. Third. Fourth. None of them officially existed. Then my scanner vibrated. A new task appeared. Retrieve package 441B. Location. Unknown. Distance. 12 feet. I slowly looked around. Nothing sat 12 feet away except a blank concrete wall. The scanner vibrated again. Distance. 10 feet. Without moving, the package had somehow become closer. 8 feet. 6. 4. The distance kept shrinking while I stood perfectly still. Finally, it read 0 feet. The scanner beeped. Item found. My hands were empty. Something rolled across the floor behind me. I turned. A cardboard box had slid out from beneath the shelving. No barcode. No shipping label. No tape. Nothing printed on it. Just plain brown cardboard. Rule 2. Packages with no barcode are never to be scanned. Leave them where they are. I started backing away. The box moved. Not quickly. Just another inch. Then another. It wasn't rolling downhill. The concrete floor was level. It simply continued sliding toward me without making a sound. I hurried into the next aisle. When I looked back, the box was gone. During lunch break, I found Ellis sitting alone in the cafeteria. He wasn't eating, just staring at the vending machines. You've worked here 14 years. He nodded. What? He smiled sadly. Because 14 years ago, I didn't leave when I had the chance. That wasn't the answer I'd expected. What keeps people here? He looked directly at me. At first, the money. And later, he didn't answer immediately. Finally, he whispered, "You stop remembering where else you belong." A chill ran through me. What are you talking about? Tell me something. When was the last time you visited your parents? My mom lives in Arizona. When did you last see her? I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. I honestly couldn't remember. Christmas? Last summer? Maybe. The memory felt blurry, like trying to remember a dream after waking up. Ellis watched my expression change. It starts small. You forget birthdays, addresses, old friends. Eventually, you can't picture your own house. I laughed nervously. That's ridiculous. Is it? He pulled a worn photograph from his wallet. A woman and two little girls smiled at the camera. My wife. My daughters. When was this taken? I don't know anymore. You don't remember? I remember taking it. I remember loving them. I just can't remember their names. He folded the picture carefully. They don't exist anywhere except that photograph now. The brake buzzer sounded. Ellis stood. The words stayed on my scanner long enough for me to read them twice. Welcome to permanent night operations. Then the screen went black. Not powered off, just empty. Every menu disappeared. Every inventory option vanished. It reflected my face like a mirror. Only it wasn't reflecting me correctly. I was standing perfectly still. The reflection was still breathing. Slowly, I looked away. When I looked back, it matched me again. I told myself I was exhausted. 12-hour night shifts, bad sleep, too much caffeine. My brain was looking for patterns that weren't there. I almost believed that. Then my employee badge buzzed. There wasn't supposed to be a vibration feature. I pulled it from my vest. A small red LED blinked beneath my photo. I'd never noticed it before. A message slowly scrolled across its tiny display. Report to Level B. I frowned. There was no Level B. The warehouse had one floor. I'd seen the evacuation maps. Every hallway, every emergency exit. No basement, no sublevel, nothing. I found Ellis near the maintenance cage. Without saying a word, I handed him my badge. His face drained of color. You got one. One what? He looked around before answering. A summons. To where? He didn't answer immediately. Finally, he whispered. Nobody comes back the same. Miguel overheard us. He walked over, looked at the badge, and muttered something under his breath in Spanish. Then he looked at Ellis. We don't have much time. Ellis nodded. The two of them exchanged a look that told me this conversation had happened before. Many times. Ellis finally sighed. You deserve the truth. No one built this warehouse. I laughed. What? The building was here long before the company. They found it. They expanded around it. They automated it. They covered it with logos and conveyor belts and inventory systems. But they didn't make it. I stared at him. You seriously expect me to believe that? You've already believed worse. He wasn't wrong. Before I could respond, every light above us flickered once. Twice. Miguel immediately reached into my pocket, pulled out the flashlight he'd given me, and shoved it into my hand. Hold it. The overhead lights flickered a third time. Then, everything turned blue. Not dark. Blue. Every fluorescent fixture. Every emergency light. Every robot sensor. The entire warehouse looked submerged beneath deep ocean water. Rule 5. If the warehouse lights turn blue, clock out immediately. People all around us reacted instantly. No panic. No shouting. Hundreds of workers quietly abandoned carts, forklifts, scanners, and pallets. Every single one walked toward the employee exit. Not hurried, not frightened, just obedient. I joined them, then noticed something impossible. The line wasn't getting any closer to the exit. We kept walking, yet the exit remained the same distance away, like a treadmill. Ellis grabbed my arm. Don't follow them. What? They're not leaving. I looked more carefully. He was right. The people weren't walking toward the exit. They were walking into the wall beside it. One after another. Instead of colliding, they disappeared, like stepping through water. No sound, no resistance. Gone, Miguel whispered. It opened early. Then the announcement started, not over the loudspeakers. Inside the building itself, the walls vibrated with a low mechanical voice. Night inventory in progress. Personnel reconciliation beginning. Please remain still while discrepancies are corrected. Every robot stopped moving. At the exact same moment, every one of them turned toward me. Hundreds, maybe thousands. None had faces, just smooth sensor panels. Yet I knew they were looking at me. My badge buzzed again. Discrepancy detected. The blue light deepened. The warehouse suddenly felt much larger. The shelving stretched impossibly high. I couldn't see the ceiling anymore. Only darkness. Boxes began appearing where empty shelves had been seconds earlier, not arriving on conveyors. Simply existing. One of them fell. It landed beside me with a heavy thud. No barcode, no shipping label. The lid slowly unfolded by itself. Inside was my backpack. The one I'd owned in high school. Every zipper, every scratch, even a keychain my younger sister had given me before she moved away. I hadn't seen it in 15 years. Another box appeared. Inside, my first apartment keys. Another, the jacket I'd worn when my father taught me to drive. Another, birthday cards, old photographs, a cracked flip phone I'd lost in college. Every forgotten piece of my life. The warehouse had them. It had always had them. Ellis spoke so quietly I almost missed it. It collects people. First their things, then their memories. Eventually, the rest. The announcement returned. Employee Daniel Harper. Inventory incomplete. Please report missing memories. Suddenly, I couldn't remember my mother's face. I knew I loved her. I remembered Arizona. I remembered phone calls. But her face, gone. I tried picturing my childhood bedroom. Nothing. My old neighborhood. Nothing. The harder I tried, the emptier my mind became. Panic hit harder than anything I'd experienced that night. I wasn't forgetting because of fear. Something was taking them, one memory at a time. Miguel suddenly shoved the flashlight into my chest. Turn it on. I clicked it. Its weak yellow beam cut through the blue light. For just a second, everything changed. The warehouse disappeared. The shelves were gone. The robots were gone. The conveyor belts were gone. Instead, there was a massive concrete chamber stretching farther than the light could reach. No products, no machinery,